Hello everyone, this is Corner Gemstone, and today I'm going to walk you through the steps that you need to follow if you desire having a positive classroom environment without suffering. Okay, these are the points we're going to follow. First of all, review of a classroom discipline practice. Number 2, positive reinforcement strategies. Number 3, how to deal with disruptions. Number 4, transitions during lessons. And number 5, if you're dealing with a bullying behavior, what are you supposed to do? Point number 1, classroom discipline practice. Okay, I'll give you some tips and hints on what are the things you need to say, how are you going to act in your classroom. As a teacher, you should always use positive phrases when discussing your students' behaviors, okay? Don't just hop in and just start to give judgments and negative comments and say, you're acting in a bad way, you're not being good today, you're being naughty, etc. How could you do that? For example, you can use the I phrases. So focus on how you feel as a teacher or as a person in the classroom when a negative behavior had happened, for example. So we can say, if the behavior was, when you talk while I'm speaking, you're telling them that when you behave this way, this is what will happen. Okay, you're not focusing on them and on their negative behavior. You're focusing on your feeling or your point of view when this behavior is done. So again, you will say, when you talk while I'm speaking, and you continue. Describe the effect of the behavior. Okay, so when you talk while I'm speaking, I have to stop my teaching. Okay, so we're giving them the cause and the effect. After that, explain how you and others feel about this behavior. Say, for example, I get frustrated when you interrupt me while I'm speaking, for example. So again, focus on yourself, okay? Explain to the students how you feel or how others feel when they behave in a certain negative way. Use the I phrases. Always model the desired behavior. Don't tell them, oh, don't lie, don't steal things, don't take things, don't do that, don't say that. Instead, be their role model, okay? Remember that kids are like sponges, whether they're in KG classes, in primary classes, even in middle school, even in high school, okay? So these learners are like sponges. They look at you and they mirror what you're doing. So if you want them to behave positively, well, guess what? You have to be positive, okay? Never assume that your students know the desired behavior. Demonstrate your expectations. Tell them what you expect from them and act it out, okay? For example, you want to demonstrate the desired voice level, okay? You want to tell your students how you're supposed to speak or talk in classroom, and that classroom is different from the, let's say, the playground, etc. So we said always model the desired behavior. You will put this chart in front of you that has the different levels, okay? So this is level 0. Use this during tests and in the library. Sounds like quiet, okay? Then number 1, use this during seat work. Sounds like a teeny tiny whisper. And then number 2, use this during partner or group work. It sounds like dinner time or game board talk at home. Number 3, use this in the gym during free play or gameplay. It sounds like loud talking and way to goes. And number 4, use this at outdoor recess or cheering at sports games, and it sounds like laughter and happy shouts. After you explain this guide to your students, you can go and practice these points. So let's imagine that we're in the library now. How are we going to communicate with each other? Then Take them to a different place. Let's pretend that we are in class now and having individual work, or let's say a quiz or an exam. How are we going to sound like? And then later on, we're having group work now. How are we going to communicate with each other? Then after that, it's gameplay, and finally, sports game. So encourage them to practice the desired behavior. After that, stick this chart where they can see it in front of their eyes. Remind them daily with this chart and what they're supposed to do, or how are they supposed to communicate in classroom. And finally, make them sign their names on it. Psychologically, this has a very high, intense effect on them. Okay. Number two, positive reinforcement. Okay, remember that the kids are all coming from a different background, they have different needs, they were nurtured differently, their sensitivity level is different. Keep this in mind and always use positive reinforcement with your students. Tips on that. How could you give your students positive reinforcement? First of all, notice the littlest deeds. Let's say student X always misbehaves and is always being naughty or bullying every day. And then there is this one day when he acts amazingly in class. He follows the rules. He's so kind to others. Spotlight on that and exaggerate, pat on their heads, high five them, give them rewards, choose them as stars of the week, etc. Okay? Do not always catch them when they're being naughty, and when they are being amazing, just ignore that. No. Okay? You have to be like, you have to have the eagle eyes in the classroom. You have to pay attention to details. Number two, acknowledge the hard work and the efforts regardless of the results. Let's say this same student, very same student, is so slow. He never finishes his tasks on time. Okay? But at least he finished 3 out of 5 questions in his revision sheet. So why should we always focus on the results? Let's focus also on the journey. Okay? Isn't this also important? Aren't they putting a lot of effort and a lot of concentration on what they're doing? So acknowledge the hard work and the efforts regardless of the results. Number three, spot the light on their qualities. I'm sure that even the troublemaker in their classroom has at least 1 or 2 qualities. Spotlight on them. Let's say this student or this bully in the classroom is so good at solving jigsaw puzzles or telling riddles or telling jokes. Well, give him time to do that. Like, ask him to, let's say, Danny, tell us a joke today. You're so good at telling jokes, for example. Or you have another student who is not so good academically, but he's a brilliant artist. He paints nicely, he draws amazing portraits, for example. Ask him to bring one of his drawings and stick it on the wall, for example, or outside the classroom so everyone can see it. After that, be consistent, fair, and impartial. So let's say you have 2 students, A and B, and you love the A student, and the B student, you don't like him that much. Let's say student A misbehaved and student B misbehaved, but instead of giving both consequences, you only dealt with student B, for example. That's not fair. What are you trying to teach your students? That it's okay to be unfair, it's okay to be partial, it's okay to change your mind? No. So if you put classroom rules at the beginning of the year, stick to them. If you put consequences, stick to them, no matter who the student is. Okay? Number 5, label the negative behavior instead of the behaving student. So instead of saying, oh, you're such a bully, oh, you're such a naughty boy, oh, you're such a slow kid, instead of just labeling them and judging them, label the behavior itself. Okay, so instead of saying you're being so bad today, He could say, this behavior is not so good, and use the strategy we presented in the beginning of this PowerPoint. Use the I phrases, okay? I do not like it when you act this way. Don't, instead of saying, I do not like it when you're being bad. That's so wrong, okay? Because the kid today, maybe he's happy, he's in a good mood, and he's acting amazingly in class. But maybe tomorrow he won't be in this good mood, okay? So please be aware of what you're saying or what you're telling your students because they'll believe it. Point number 3, how to deal with disruptions. Be gentle and respectful, and remember that the students are little humans just like you, but they're little. They have feelings just like you, they have fears, and they have ideas just like you. Sometimes they burst out, they scream or shout in classroom because they're so excited they remembered an information or a fact that they are so excited to share with you, okay? So give them the space and give them the freedom. But of course, within limits. Like for example, now we have a video. It's a new video. I've never seen it before, and it gives you some information on how to apply an experiment, for example. All of your comments or questions will be after the video finishes, for example. So be clear and tell them your expectations. Remember, respect that and treat them the way you'd like to be treated, okay? Number 2, humor can help. Let's say there's a troublemaker who's always misbehaving in class. Instead of screaming and scolding and removing his or her reward cards, approach them, become a magician, and cast a spell on them, for example. Make them disappear or turn them into frozen statues, for example. So it's not always helpful to be a robot. It's never helpful to be a robot and to be rigid and to be so strict, okay? Like we said in the previous video, assertiveness doesn't necessarily mean being mean and strict, okay? Defer interrupting questions. So for example, just like we said earlier, say, wait, we will answer the questions later. Or you can say, whoa, let's say, Ahmed, your question is amazing, but we will answer your questions after the video or when the video finishes, for example. Or hold on to that thought or hold on to that information. It's so valuable and we're so interested in knowing it or in you explaining it, but when the video finishes or when we finish discussion, for example. Provide social time as a reward. Usually, students disrupt your classroom or your activities in classroom because they want to mingle in class and they want to socialize. So, first, when seeing students socializing during work time, say, oh, I like that you like your friends and want to speak to them, but you know what? Now it's class time. You can socialize during break time, which is, let's say, in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Consider giving them 5 minutes at the end of the class in exchange of positive behavior. So, because today you did so well and you were amazing in class, I'll give you 5 extra minutes for break, for example, or I'll give you 5 minutes after we finish this group work because you were awesome and you followed the rules, for example. Or you used the soft voice we talked about earlier. Finally, if the student does not stop disrupting, you can isolate him or her for a few minutes. So if you used all of those tricks and that didn't work, you can isolate the student who is disrupting your classroom. And you have to give them meaningful consequences. Why is he doing this consequence? Or why is he doing this punishment? Or why is he doing this thing? Okay? Make your consequences relevant to the negative behavior. So a student has to make up for missed classes. Let's say you isolated him because he was disrupting the classroom. So he has to make it up. Let's say he will go to another grade 3 class and he has to make up his, let's say, math lesson because he wasn't paying attention or he wasn't involved. Then A student has to sit and reflect on his behavior. And remember, we're not calling this corner or this chair naughty chair or timeout chair. We are naming this chair as a reflection chair. You will sit there, you will take 5 minutes to think, relax, and reflect on what you did and why did you do that. The reason why you behaved that way. What's your gaining from this behavior? Number 4, transition during lessons. Procedures. The first most important point is plan a transition routine. Remember when we were talking about first week activities? One of those important activities or things to achieve or prepare is the class routine. How are we going to transition from one class to another? If you're going, let's say, to the French class, how are you going to walk down the aisle, for example? How are you going to come back from the break, from the recess? How are you going to walk down the stairs? How are you going to put your books in your cubbies and get the books of the other subject on your desks, for example? Plan these transition routines and make them clear. And if you're teaching younger classes, younger ages, it's always helpful and important to display these routines or procedures on the wall. Okay? Number 2, practice the routine. Practice, practice, practice. Remember, the kids do not know what you're expecting them to do. So you need to tell them what they're expected to, and they have to practice your expectation. Okay? And this, of course, has to happen during the first week of school. Okay? Forget about the curriculum. The first week of school, no curriculum at all. It's training them on you, how you think, what do you want, what is expected, what is accepted. Okay? Number 3, complement compliance during transition. Prepare reward cards for those who follow the transition routines. Give them reward cards, or give them treats, or give them socializing time, or give them time to go and read or to relax, or give them time to go and hop and jump in the playground if they follow the transition routines. And finally, reward the positive transition. This is what I'm telling you. So point 3 and 4 are intertwined with each other. They complete each other. Number 5, dealing with bullying. What to do? First thing first is being proactive. Don't wait until the bullying happens and go and find a spot or go start watching them, okay, or supervising them. No. Prepare the playground with visible adults. Adults, the supervisors have to always be there, okay? Because sometimes the kids who bully, they bully because there are no adults, so they can get away with it. So no, be there, be present and in the moment or before this incident happens. Another solution or another important point is to conduct discussions on what makes a good friend. So if the student knows that if he's going to act in a bad way with his friends won't be his friends anymore, he'd become lonely, everyone would have hard feelings toward him, etc. So discuss how could you become a good friend, and it's always good to include good friends activities in the beginning of the year and build on that every week. After that, you can watch movies about bullying and what happens to bullies. Remember when I said that you have to explain to the misbehaving students how you feel? When you discuss with these students who bully, you discuss with them or explain to them how others feel, or how others see that bully. I think most probably these students are going to apologize and stop doing that. But of course, it needs consistency. Okay, you don't do it today and tomorrow ignore the bullying action. No, you have to be consistent with that. Okay. Number two, teach students to advocate for themselves. Teach them to stand up for themselves. Let's say I'm being bullied today. I can, in a very confident way, in a very strong way and sure way, say, stop, leave me alone. Okay, be assertive and be confident. And that's it. I'm telling you to leave me alone. I don't like that. Okay, or that hurts me. When you do that, I don't feel okay. And remind these students who are using this phrase, no need to be so angry while saying it, but be assertive. Okay, be sure, be confident, and just say it, and they will leave. And if they didn't leave, you can go and ask an adult for help. But you have to train them that they have to stand up for themselves. Okay, so that's it. Thanks for watching. If there are any suggestions, you can leave a comment and tell me what are your suggestions for the future videos. If you feel like this video was important and was helpful, hit like please and share your knowledge with others.